Good evening. This is the meeting of the Dog Park Committee of February 1st. I have given, I probably didn't give you yours, Cole. Okay, we were anticipating a group of Fur Friends of Auburn attending. I don't know if they are, because today I got a letter from Nancy Sarkeesian, who I guess is the president, is that what we'd call?
Yeah, I think
of
she's
that
in charge
group.
of it, yeah.
She's in Florida, but she sent a letter to the Board of Selectmen and gave me a copy that I will read to you, and I'll pass it around. You can look at it in case I'm not clear. Dear Mr. Prouty, I'm writing to you on behalf of the Fur Friends of Auburn. The Fur Friends of Auburn is not yet an official group, but it is our intent to establish this nonprofit Friends of group if the Town of Auburn administration votes and approves a specific site location for the construction of the dog park and receives the approval from the Stanton organization to utilize funds available through their grant. The Stanton Foundation requires a 10% commitment from the town for hard construction costs. The Fur Friends of Auburn is a group of Auburn residents who during the past several months have met with members of town administration to discuss the construction of a dog park using money available from the Stanton Foundation grant. It is our commitment to provide through fundraising the 10% of the hard construction costs that is required by the town by the Stanton Foundation, provided the Town of Auburn follows the guidelines set forth by the Stanton Foundation and the guidelines for a successful dog park established by the American Kennel Club. Because we would like to see our own dogs enjoy the benefits of a dog park, it is necessary for us to establish a commitment deadline of January 1st, 2018 from the town. If the Town of Auburn is not approved to receive grant monies from the Stanton Foundation by said date, our commitment to support this project will have to be reevaluated. Respectfully, Nancy J. Sarkeesian. You guys would like to...
Could you repeat the date?
January 1st.
January 1st, next year.
Thank you very much.
And that's the construction approval. It's not the design funds approval.
Okay.
Which again points up, I think, the necessity for us to get working. I was going to say here, I was going to apologize because last meeting dragged out, and that was bad chairmanship. Really, I should have been a lot firmer about the chairman's role in recognizing speakers, so we don't have 2 or 3 people trying to speak at the same time. So if you would you please just address the chairman and get recognized to speak, and that I think will make things go a lot quicker and smoother.
Mr. Chairman, would you prefer that we keep our speaking to a certain amount of time?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
But, within reason. If I get upset, I'll bang on the table. I should have brought a hammer for a gavel,
Give a
but I
gavel,
didn't,
yeah.
yeah. And I have a gavel at home, somewhere that I use for quite a few years when I was chairman of the Conservation Commission and then chairman of the Planning Board. But my wife had several ideas where it might be. I didn't find it. Okay, so I guess the Fur Friends are not going to be here. That Nancy's letter served, and we've got some connections anyways, which is very good for us.
Through the chair, if I could just, Jim, this is a letter, statement from the Fur Friends confirming their 10% commitment, providing that the town and the Board of Selectmen approve a site with a expiration date, however, of January 1st, 2018. as in they would like a commitment by that date. So if you want to read that letter, we just read that.
And, yes, I do have here somewhere, I am quite sure a set of minutes from the last meeting to check. So I would guess that probably our next order of business ought to be to read and approve the minutes of the last meeting. Can you do these?
Julie did that.
Julie did these, yeah.
She did, however, provide me with a copy so I can edit and submit to the town clerk
Okay.
once they're approved.
Good job, Julie.
Absolutely.
I know they're quite lengthy.
I tend to be similarly lengthy.
But if you've read, are there any corrections or omissions?
The only correction is with regards to the spelling of my name. I am not a Bukowski, not related to Charles Bukowski, although it would be lovely.
Okay.
Although it would be lovely, I am not.
You're Koski.
Indeed, sir.
That's good to know.
If no one has any corrections or omissions, then I'll ask for those in favor of approving the minutes to indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so voted. Thank you. Okay, next would be the discussion of visited sites and the ability of the sites to meet the criteria. Were you able to visit the sites? I know we didn't give you any sites to visit.
I was not.
That's all right, we'll make up on the next
Oh, I'm
round of
sure.
shows.
Ron will make it up to me in more ways than one.
Well, you know, I suppose the best thing I could do is run down the sites, and if you have one you'd like to see considered, we could discuss it. Some of these overlap, some on the orange or the pink sheet overlap. There are 4 for Packagug Hill called Pappas Park here. There are a couple for the old landfill on Rochdale Street. And there are some with no frontage or no viable frontage, just a footpath leading into the site. So, and the site itself is quite a distance from the nearest road. So did anybody take a look at 339 Rochdale Street, which is the former landfill?
That, I think we
We'll-
looked
I-
at it the first time because I have it crossed off on my list.
Okay, I think so. I think Julie told us that it's
Yeah.
still under DEP management
Yeah.
because it's a capped landfill.
As well as I believe there were concerns around that being in proximity to a firing range.
Yes. Yeah. Police fire up there. Did anybody look at Barnes Street?
Jackie looked at Barn Street. She is ill this evening and
Probably because she tried to get in there.
sends her apologies for not being present. She indicated that she did put some notes in the drive as well as provided me with just some bullet points around her concerns.
Do you have the document out?
I have it open, yes.
What did she say about that particular property?
Lot 8, 30 acres, zone 2 and 3 aquifers, neighbors on Barn Street and Gilbert Way, no issues with wetlands, no safety visibility concerns, DPW maintains no, available parking no, site topography issues no, distant concerns no, no access road, large dense lot, possibility to build access road but would be in between neighborhood houses.
Okay, thank you.
It's always tricky.
There were no other significant concerns that she indicated, and she indicates that she is watching the meeting live, should there be any concerns.
Well, we should have her call in.
How about the Packagug Street sites, which are all part of the Packagug development? And they're listed here as parts 1, 2, 3, and 4 of the Pappas area.
She was responsible for 1, which is listed as Pappas Walking Trail Parcel 1 of 4.
And I'm sure that she would not like that, because I think that when they established that park, they banned the use of it as a dog park.
Did she have any specific notes on that? You don't need to read the whole row, but any specific notes on that lot?
Let's see.
Lot 16.
That was okay. Water availability, no. No abatement issues, no. Wetland, no. Middle of nowhere. Hunters frequently park on.
Yeah.
So significant safety issues.
Yeah.
Did anyone have the cornfields which abuts that? Was one piece of it?
I have just west of the cornfields, which is off of Goddard and Rice Road. I had those, my three of my 4 areas were all in between, all one giant piece, essentially. I was told by Amy Contois that land, not that it means we can't use it, but that land is being looked at by the Open Space Committee as a potential walk walking paths.
Mhm.
I don't know that that means it's a no. I know Millbury has walking paths around their dog park, and I don't think that's necessarily an issue, but it's something to think about
Yeah.
for sure.
It is directly abutting the houses on that side of Packagug Street and Goddard Drive.
Right.
So there are a lot of
You'd have to go
abutters to it.
significantly
But I think
to
worse
avoid that,
than
right?
that is that it's been used agriculturally
Right.
for 40 years.
Mm-hmm.
And if you were to walk on it in March and April, depending on the weather, you would very likely be up to your knees in mud. It would require a lot of work on the
Yes.
surface
Yeah.
to make that
Agreed.
usable. Um,
We're up to lot 1 on Oxford Street South.
Yes, Jackie also did that. And it's also a middle of the nowhere site with wildlife such as coyotes and porcupines.
You're
Big
gonna
concerns.
well, that's at Granger Cliffs.
Yes.
That's again, well, it's maybe the only site with very, very limited access unless you crossed and got an easement from Home Depot. The land between Home Depot, the land between Washington Street and the land that we own is separated by the parking area and additional area owned by Home Depot. So that there is no really
Yes.
legal access to it in terms of planning board requirements. The other entrance to it is a very, very steep walking trail off Oxford Street South that goes
Yes.
by the ledges. Have any of you ever visited those? The ledges are like Purgatory Chasm with only one face instead of a canyon. So it's, that side is rather tough to get to and a little bit hazardous.
What did she say about 775 Washington?
That's the other part of it.
Yeah, that's the whole, it's all also
Yes.
abatement issues with BJ's, Home Depot.
Yeah, it's all part of the same.
Then we have the cemetery roads. There
Uh,
are two parcels there.
Yep, Barnes Street has no access at all. It's completely surrounded by private property, so that's gone already. There's no way to get to it. Cemetery Road I went to, that piece is right under really large power lines.
Yes.
There's bushes and other brush and a stream, and the roads to get to it are terrible. They're absolutely the
Yeah.
worst. It would need a lot of work.
Mhm.
And then the safety concerns with the power lines. Prospect Street is just a lot with trees, but it may not actually be owned by the town at this point.
Right.
I have to look at the thing again. I think it might be owned by a development company. And then that lot on Oxford Street South is strange because there's a small lot that's on the road, and then like another, it goes like a skinny lot, like right behind, goes behind a development into a very large area. So it could be bulldozed and then built a road through there, but it would end up being super expensive.
Oh,
Yeah. Those are my three.
Okay,
Nothing really
thank you.
valid.
Thanks. The other one that might have been feasible here, and it may be up on the list, are the Rotary Beach properties.
I looked at those. I looked at the lake side as well as the parking lot side. Primary concerns with the parking lot side is I did not go all the way up because it was a mud fest, but it was the slope that essentially at this point there's a dirt road that goes up and there is a chain that prevents current access. And there is a lot that is rather dense with residential on both sides. Potential, yes, great. not so much. And that is one is 2.0 and one is 2.2 acres. So the parking lot side is 2.0 acres and the beach side is 2.20 acres. The beach side, the water could be pro, con.
Right.
There is a very haphazard fence on both sides of the Rotary Beach property, but there is currently no fencing to the water, given that it was previously utilized as some sort of a beach. And there is a staircase on the left side of the property, but the stairs appear to be dismantling. That street is quite a busy street. There is no parking. I actually parked on kind of the side of the road, put my hazard lights on, got out to go take a look around, and the cars were driving at a high rate of speed, which again would raise some safety concerns should a dog escape. And also, with regards to the water side, there is no parking unless both parcels were to be utilized, in which case you would be navigating across the street, so down a hill, which would raise issues of ADA accessibility, across the road to the other side. Not best case scenario.
Okay, did anybody visit any of the other sites on the pink sheet? Before we go on to the sites that we had, can we eliminate those? Is there anything,
Did anyone
That
find
we-
the perfect spot?
there's some that aren't bad on the other sheet, but
I will convey to you that Jackie said that she did not feel comfortable with any of the sites she visited for the aforementioned reasons.
thank you for going, by the way. I know that those are kind of out of the way.
Cemetery Road, man, was really hard to find.
Now, Hebrew Cemetery there?
Yeah,
still?
so it's also, surrounded by a cemetery, and people feel uncomfortable with dogs around
Yeah.
cemeteries
I
anyway.
would think so.
The only one that I would maybe consider for mine was the Leicester Street. I can't remember if it was 295 Leicester Street. The only issue, really, because there are not many neighbors in that area at all. Across the street, yes,
Yeah.
but not on that side. However, I feel like there's serious potential for houses in that area, and I don't, in the minds of the Board of Selectmen, I don't know if they would prefer not to use that for a park, as, you know, if it has that much potential for residential area. There are a lot of trees. It's essentially just a wooded area between Leicester Street and the pond,
Yeah, with no parking.
with no parking, so you'd have to do a parking lot drive from scratch. So it has a lot of benefits, but also the cost of putting in a parking lot to clearing out all of those trees in the
Right.
wooded area
I felt
would
the
bring
same.
up costs for sure.
I
That's-
felt the same about Oxford Street.
Yeah.
It would be a lot of construction work
Yeah.
just to clear away trees, just to build parking in a road and everything else.
Right. I wouldn't necessarily cross it off and not think about it, but I wouldn't make it a top option.
So
if
not
that
on
makes
your
sense.
short list.
It's not on my
so to
short
speak.
list, yeah, it's not on my short list.
Now, that brings us to the list of 12. That's one of the 12. Camp Gleason is the first that I have, just by location of the sheet. Did anybody look at Camp Gleason?
It was not assigned to me, but I also did go there.
It was probably assigned to me. I went to all of them. That's what you get when you retire.
I've been to Gleason before, since it was brought up in previous meetings that the Board of Selectmen had. So I've also visited the area.
I was not familiar with it, and given the previous conversations, I just wanted to go take a peek.
Yeah, sure.
What did you think?
So whose site was it officially?
Well,
I don't remember.
maybe it's mine.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was yours.
I thought I had the last few
So you
pages
tell us.
of this packet. My concern, got plenty of room, and it's easily reachable, and it's got plenty of parking, although the parking lot probably could stand a little repair in places. The thing that bothers me is the surface. Number one, it slants very steeply to the pond. Number two, since they've acquired the property, they got it by negotiations with the state, a second building has been built near the rec building. The rec building offers some potential, but also I think has perhaps some problems involved with it. The town now rents it out to various groups who want some sort of a day area. It's forested, most of it, but the trees are pretty much scrub pine and scrub oak. There's nothing that gives you a great deal of shade. It could give you, if you're careful in pruning out. I was worried about all of the wooded, heavily wooded areas because Stanton says in their remarks that you got to be careful for trees in wooded areas that sometimes, unless you put certain buffers around them,
Right.
that fecal matter would cause them great harm. The property is used for fishing and for hiking, not for anything else, which is a plus because when you get to the other sites, there are very few that aren't used for something. The town noted that there was future marketability, and they were thinking about trying to unload that at one time. There was, long ago, some interest in town about opening it as a swimming area again, but I think that's pretty much gone the way of swimming holes now. The building that they call a rec building does have bathrooms, but I don't know if you'd want to keep that open during the day. One of the other assets, I think, is that there is some site maintenance by the DPW, which in any of these sites is a real plus for us. And that's not to say that the Fur Friends wouldn't do a good job, but I think that most of them you have to have some professional equipment and help to do the entire job. It would be difficult for ADA compliance unless you parked, if you're going in on that access road, to the right of that road. That, though, brings you into the backyards of two homes, including the chairman of the board of selectmen.
Right.
But I think he'd be amenable to it. But that's where the land is the flattest. It's possibility, maybe we should take a look at it again if we're still looking.
I will comment, if I may, Mr. Chairman, that when I was there were numerous individuals walking their dogs.
Yeah.
It was during the day. There were also several individuals parked in their vehicle engaged in unknown activities. And I found that of interest. But it did appear to be very populated with regards to dogs.
Okay. We did Ranger Cliffs and we did the 5-acre parcel on Leicester Street. We did Rotary Beach. The next spot is Julia Bancroft. Did anyone do that, or was that mine?
I did it.
What do you think of that, Jim?
I think just it's only the multi-level topography that I think is a challenge. You got neighbors there. I'll argue with both that location as well as the one behind us. They had schools there, and there was
Yes.
noise, and there was going on all the time. Now the question is, if their town is looking to sell those properties or try to do something with them, how does the kind of split of that potentially work, or even could it work?
Right.
But in terms of no, there's no wetland issues there. I have to assume that does DPW handle the schools in terms of maintenance, or is that subbed out to someone else?
No, I think they're handling them
I think
now,
they
but
do,
they don't
like the
do
plowing
very
and
much with
whatnot.
them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. So So I would say the same thing for the behind us. I mean, I think behind us is a perfect location. You've got all the different things that are already, you've got parking right there, just resurface the parking lot back there. You've already got kind of a rectangular one-level structure. We've got to have water lines somewhere in the neighborhood of that area because of the two buildings right there. We definitely have abatement potential challenges because you'll have people in the area that on two sides that are there already. But again, it's not like there's probably more activity going on at the school when the school's in session than there'll ever
Right.
be at a dog park there type of thing. But
Right.
you know, they may feel differently. So I felt that that one is worth looking into. The cornfields, I guess I wasn't 100. I mean, I looked through there. I mean, first off, I mean, I don't know if I'm a supporter of you can't put a dog park there if the land was there. There are so many people that take their dogs to Pappas already. So I mean, anybody wants to argue that the dogs, can't be there, shouldn't be there, they already are there. When I was there scoping it out, somebody was already walking to with their dogs.
Yeah.
Right. Yep.
Type of a thing. If we're referring to the center, I don't know if you know this, what the exact area is. Is it pretty much the center of the Pappas that's available there? Because I looked,
That's the cornfield house.
Yeah.
so pretty much behind the little music, pavilion thing they have, and
More to the
What?
west of that.
yeah.
Yeah,
So,
right at the end of, what's the street?
Cutting Ave?
Cutting it out.
Right.
Which is dead end.
I mean, if anything, I would argue it'd probably be a better situation for people because if as far as people who don't necessarily do cleanup and it's around the where people are walking around the field area. Now it's contained in one area type of a thing. So, parking obviously is there. There's got to be some sort of water line that goes in there type of thing. So. Probably need to get a little bit more specific on where exactly in that cornfield is to kind of determine, what the land we're working with potentially is going to be. But again, I would argue that has possibilities to it. I looked at the senior center. I guess we're talking about the area that's right in front of the senior citizen center. Is that right, Ron? Pretty much that?
I think so,
between
yeah.
the parking lot and the
In the
house.
housing for the
Yeah.
elderly.
Well, yeah, it's
Yeah.
between the street and the.
No, the other side, where
Yeah.
the trees are.
Yeah,
Doesn't that room back there?
Yeah, well, no, yeah.
you're absolutely right,
So
no.
no, the answer is no.
And then that-
I didn't see. I mean, I thought
Yeah.
maybe like
Yeah.
it was the front. I'm like, yeah, but I don't know. The
I mean,
elderly-
potentially either
I
spot,
mean,
I
they've got
guess,
that
but,
dome
yeah.
structure thing, outdoor
Yeah.
thing to sit in there. I'm like, I
Right.
don't know if that's going to be a fly, but
Right,
and then it's right on top of the main street.
Right.
There's
Right.
either.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I didn't think that was.
And the senior center is very busy at times.
Yeah.
Their parking areas,
full.
when they have events, it's.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Well,
So the parking
or
would be an
it's-
issue.
Chuck wouldn't like that, right?
Yeah.
Richard? Richard is a specialist in this.
So, based on what I saw, I thought that, barring, what we don't know,
Right.
the town hall and the cornfields were options. Then we put, Bancroft as a potential after that, but that's gonna depend upon, what the topography situation there is and how we might work that. We have to go back and take a deeper look in terms of how much space is there if you go onto the lower level, and then maybe that would be enough type of a thing, but.
So you like those two?
I mean, I think.
They're right here in the cornfields?
Right.
Charlotte. Mr. Chair, the Mary D playground area, do we know if that's still being used by organized
It's
sports?
being used by
in the
soccer.
town?
Yeah,
Okay, it
very
is.
So-
Okay,
Soccer.
Heavily.
okay. I know there are a lot of fields in town, but that's,
No, I
Something
think
that-
that's
yeah,
a
to
good
think about.
point, because I think that nothing would bring more antagonism than taking a sports location. Because you got a
Right.
built-in group. It's not one or two people to protest, it's,
right,
the soccer league.
right.
I thought that Julie Bancroft would be ideal because size-wise it is, and once you get down to that level, it's very even. But it's got that softball field right in the middle. And if you said, we're gonna take over this area, you'd have to take that field, I think.
And we also don't know
Yeah.
what's gonna be done with the building, like
Yeah.
Jim mentioned.
Well, that's it.
Right, I mean, it's
That's
all
a
up in
big
the air.
question mark,
Yes.
Same
right?
with Mary D.
Yeah.
You don't know what's
Right.
gonna happen.
Right. Then there was baseball field at Holstrom field on Southbridge Street Court. But that's
That-
pretty much
that-
limited, yes. It was crossed off because it's controlled by the water district who has a well there.
Right.
That brings us to the last two, Lemansky Park, which surprisingly has two locations. It's got the one location here, but it's got another location that they photographed. The second location, which is probably better in that it has no real use now, is very small. I doubt that you could get a large dog and a small dog spot on it. It does have one big tree. That's the area if you were walking into the property, it would be to the left of the track, the fenced-in track. Then there's a drainage swale, and then there's just kind of like a tabletop.
Right.
And that's about 70 yards by the smallest part, probably less than 20. And there is a long path leading into it. Now, it's used by a lot of people, just as Granger Cliffs. I think the use of a lot of these areas shows how much a dog park would be appreciated by some dog owners. You can see every time it snows,
So are you talking about the area behind like the swing sets playground area down
that's
on
the other
Lemansky?
area.
Yes.
'Cause
Behind
that's where they play
the
soccer. They
swing
play soccer there
sets.
too.
Yes.
And yes,
The
and
bottom
they
of the
play
hill from the rink.
youth football.
Right.
And there is a big metal storage container
Yeah,
that
yeah.
contains equipment from the youth football league. So I think there would be, again, some consternation by that league if we took that area.
Well-
That's a nice big flat area, but
That is, but don't they already use the other football field
The
around the track?
the high school uses that
They used to.
occasionally.
But not because they have their own field now. They don't use that
Well-
field anymore.
I
middle school
called
field.
them and they told me that now they can't use the middle school field. So that when there are soccer games, that sometimes the football team comes and practices at the good field, what I call the
Yeah.
field surrounded by the track, which
Right.
they redid
Yeah.
in the last year. That has been grassed in the last year.
The only thing, if I could add, from teaching, I don't believe youth would be using the field at the same time as the high school, because the high school practices after school.
Yeah.
Kids don't have, at least I don't think so, practices at 2:30 in the afternoon, do they?
They're more apt to have their
In the
practice at
evenings,
5
correct?
o'clock
Right.
I don't
Or
think that
after-
would be an
and on Saturday.
issue, overlap issue.
No, I don't think there's an overlap, but I do think the high school believes that they're gonna be able to use it when the high school field
Right,
is
right.
heavily used. In fact, the high school has some of its equipment up there, the big heavy blocking sleds
Okay.
up there.
So they use that area and not not the track.
Well, they're hoping to use the track now that that has been
Okay.
receded.
Okay. I thought they were already using the track, that's why I wasn't understanding.
I don't know if I think they did before the Parks Department said it's gotta be receded.
Okay.
And both of those two areas are used by dog walkers.
Yeah.
In fact, some
definitely.
dog walkers make the full swing with both of those
Right.
areas.
Yep.
And then finally, there is...
Is there another advantage of that spot? There's no really abutting other than the first couple of
No,
houses
you're
that you do.
absolutely right,
Yep.
yeah.
Yep.
Exactly.
I like
Yeah.
that area a lot. And
Uh,
the
That's
Pappas
a good,
area as well.
good area. The last one is the Boy Street Tot Lot. Somebody's backyard. That's the one that I thought might have the most potential. Because there's no heavy usage. There are neighborhood kids who come and use the equipment. The equipment is all individual and could be moved, I think, to JB as long as that stays open.
Or Franklin,
Or Franklin,
which is
yes,
less than
either
a mile
one.
away.
Yep,
Yep. Franklin Park,
Oh,
the
the
lands you were
industrial.
asking about, yes, on the
Okay,
off Sword
thank you.
Street.
yes.
Yeah.
And that's got a lot of good stuff.
half a mile away,
Yeah.
not even.
Yeah.
So
Uh,
Boy Street, I thought there was maybe 6 pieces of playground stuff.
There's 2 dinosaurs, a swing set, a large sandbox, a couple other pieces, a little merry-go-round.
Talk about a
Right on.
detailed inventory.
Listen, I told you, I visited these spots
Yeah.
several times.
Weren't you on the planning board too at some point, so you'd be out there for that role too?
No longer. But that's, you know, it's down around 30,000. Certainly not a complete acre. Probably you could get 30,000 or a little more out of it. The advantages to that, I think, it has the wall in front, and then the tot lot is above that, so it is higher than the homes on Boy Street, which are across the street. And it is lower than the homes on Robert Ave, which is behind it, considerably lower there. So that I think that noise would, not that I think the dog park would be very noisy,
No.
but I think that noise would not be considered a terrible problem there.
Now, I've not been down there. Is there room to build a parking lot?
There is a driveway that goes into the lot, and now it's chained, but I don't see any reason because we don't chain the other parks off. Gleason isn't chained,
How long?
Lemanski
How long
isn't
is it?
chained.
How many cars can fit?
If you expand it, if you
Yeah.
doubled the driveway, I think, so that you would have width, probably 15,
Oh, okay.
10 to 15. It could be done, and there is, you know, a base for it, but it would have to be redone again.
You're right.
But it's a, you know, it's a pretty flat area once you get up there.
Right.
It's pretty flat, and
Is it street, I mean, I'm bringing it up here, I'm on a map here, is there street parking there as well for that area?
Not really.
not really,
It's
particularly
Boy
not
Street's
when there's
fixed, too.
snow, because
Yeah.
they plow the snow
Yeah.
to the wall. So
Yeah.
there's,
Right.
It's a pretty
although
busy
I've
street as
parked
well.
on the sidewalk when I've visited. Yeah.
I parked on
Wellman
the
Street,
Yeah.
there are no homes on this, on the side of the
Yeah.
tot lot, but that's quite steep. But you could,
Right.
I suppose, if you.
If you're coming from the neighborhood, there's also a staircase that leads up, I believe.
Up it, yes.
On the.
Yes.
Which might need
Very
to be
steep.
looked at, though.
Yeah.
I was
Very
just
steep,
gonna say,
Yeah.
isn't it?
I
I
think
don't know
there
how,
would be some
Yeah.
safety issues
Yeah.
and
Yes.
Yeah.
maybe structural issues with the staircase.
I'm
Yes.
concerned about ice as well.
I think once you, valid point, the staircase would be
I think it'd be ripped
no
out.
go in the
yeah,
winter.
you probably be
Yeah.
better to chain that up and let
Yes.
the
Yeah.
driveway
Fill it in.
open.
Yeah.
So that's the end of our list.
May I clarify your question?
Yeah.
You were saying ice on the stairs or getting up to the level of?
Either way, I mean, if it's elevated, it's just I'm just concerned. Like I said, I've not been over there. I'm concerned about ice and snow. If someone wanted to go, even with the amount of snow we have out right now, it's still not too bad enough to go out if you want to take your dog out in the middle of the day, right?
Definitely.
But it would still be slippery.
I think you'd want to park in an expanded parking area where
Yeah.
the entry drive is, because that's pretty level to the area where you'd have
Right.
the dog park. The stairs are very narrow too.
And steep.
Yeah,
But I think the reality, New England understanding is that we would lose parking spaces in the winter,
Yeah.
Right.
just like we do in our driveways
Right.
or. But definitely, it is steep. But I would be confident that if there was no chain, that driving a CRV, I would be able to get up there.
Okay.
The only thing if I can, to add to that, is it reminds me an awful lot of the Packagug Golf Course location in that it is almost completely surrounded by neighbors. I know that they're not exactly maybe as close, or they might be a different level, but the amount of abutters there that maybe use that location already, or just in general, how many abutters there are, makes me a little nervous.
So-
with
We
opposition.
might have to do some selling.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
So can I make a suggestion? I mean, I think we've gone through all the sites, and what I'm hearing is we've got 5 potentials.
Right, agreed.
We all agree with that?
Yeah.
And those 5 potentials are Julia Bancroft, Town Hall, Pappas, Lemansky, and Boyce.
I think I'd take the town hall. They took to the town hall off their list, and I think the reason they did it is parking. There is very frequently a parking problem out here if town hall is very busy. That and the heavy use it gets 2 seasons of the year for soccer, which is constantly in need of more fields. But I think you pretty well hit the nail on the head,
Yeah, we
Jim.
pretty much have those
Because
5.
I think where I'm going with this, right, I mean, what might be a good exercise for us to do is list out the cons of each one of these 5 sites, and then, you know, for the real eyesore ones that we need maybe some additional information on, which I'm sensing we're gonna need for a lot of these,
Yeah.
then that's what we kind of, you know, we gotta kind of call out and then assign someone, whether that's a series of questions we turn over to Julie and say, listen, we need this information from this department to verify this, then that helps us continue to, you know, march down the vetting process. You know, if some of these have like, you know, 7 cons, well, maybe the first one major con of like, you know, is the land available to us even though it's part of like a Mary D? That maybe that's the question we need to ask first, and then it's not gonna really, it will only matter for the other 6 potential cons if we have it's a go for the one. You see what I'm saying?
I do.
Because then that will help us kind of get to a point where now we're fine tuning the vetting of these things and getting answers.
Sure.
To just rewind to our short list.
Yeah.
How do folks feel about Gleason?
Yeah, that's what I just asked. Was that off, or are we still?
You didn't like the activities there, right?
In no way do I want one snapshot
Yeah.
to be a
Right.
prohibitive criteria.
Right. Well, I'd also add that neighbors might be more inclined to have more use of that park to eliminate
Yeah.
that type of activity.
And I feel like if it was frequented more by the civilians, then it would be frequented more by the police as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that if anything, that might be a benefit because it might help us with the neighbors in that area.
Absolutely,
eliminate
and it might be a
some
disincentive
Yeah.
to any antisocial
Yeah,
activity.
now in terms of that, I'm not familiar with that location at all. I know that we had like a lake water side that you wanted to call out on a parking lot side. I mean, is there?
No,
one-
that's Rotary Beach.
I misspoke. That
Okay.
was my chaos, internal
No,
chaos.
you had,
It's all right, we all have those.
I have many. That was
don't worry, you'll get
reflecting
more.
Rotary.
Okay,
They will
so,
increase, thank you.
so if we add 6, I mean, we've gone down from like 20 to 6, so if we
Yeah.
add that,
That's not a bad
that's
thing,
not making
yeah.
or breaking us.
Yep.
Right.
Well, that's significant reduction, that's 75%-ish, so that's good.
Okay.
And I don't know if any of you have seen this site, but if you go under Town of Auburn and search for Animal Control Officer, you will find a presentation that the group that designed the so-called golf course site. And you will see that they have 6 locations left. And they have aerials of each of the 6 locations.
So what do you mean by that? I mean, as it pertains to the site that got shut down or other
No,
sites that
I'm
were
saying
considered?
other sites. In fact, you will see how they paired from 12 down to whatever, and I have the idea that it might be 5 now. Even 4. But they'll give you some ideas as to why they may have pared them down. And they will give you some idea as to how much room is available there.
I feel like I've seen this presentation. Was it on the Facebook group as well?
Yes, it
Yeah.
It was, they
Oh,
made the
okay.
Yeah,
presentation
I've seen it.
Yeah.
I've seen it.
at Selectmen's meeting.
So it may have some very valuable information to assist
Yeah.
Yeah.
us.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
essentially what Amy had gone through in
Yeah.
that first meeting. Shade, water access maintained by DPW.
Yeah.
Pros and cons were made out for that, for each list. Although I feel like we have the same information now from looking at each of the sites. I don't know how much more is on there. It wouldn't hurt to take a look.
No.
So,
I mean, given that I feel respectfully that we have replicated a lot of efforts of the town, perhaps it might be in the best interest of using our time efficiently to maybe watch that presentation or some of it
Right.
on our own time
Right.
so that we're not duplicating future efforts.
Is it a recording or
It's a
a?
PowerPoint presentation. I think it says dog park or dog park.
Yeah, dog park presentation.
Bark in
I
the
think.
park, bark park?
Bark park,
Bark in
yes.
the park? I forget what it was titled. Something like that, bark park. Bark in the park. But these sites were all top 11, top 12, whatever it was, potential sites. And that doesn't mean these aren't appropriate, but they, their first choice was Packagug.
The town's
The
first
town, the
choice.
town's recommendation to the Board of
Yeah.
Selectmen was the Packagug, the Upland
The
Street
golf-
Yeah.
golf
Golf
course behind
course
it.
parking
Yes,
area.
right.
Which cannot be used.
Which cannot be used, right. So we're looking at the others, but they're, just so happen, you know, we chose the same ones that they had on their top 10 essentially, which
Okay. Makes
is, you
sense.
know, reassuring, I
mean,
guess.
that's affirming, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so basically, all the 6 that we've identified
Right.
are still on the list, but basically.
But I think isn't the Upland Street on there?
Yes, it is. Yep.
So we're down to 5 there.
Right.
Well, they call it all locations, but they don't call it Upland.
They call it Packagug.
Right.
Up 6 scores.
They eliminated. Golf course parking lot, there it is.
Well, there's multiple of these slides.
Yeah.
So go to, so they have aerials of Camp Gleason,
Yep.
Bancroft, golf course parking lot doesn't help us, the senior center doesn't help us, Lemansky Park helps us.
Yep.
The Boy Street Tot Lot helps us. It really would have been nice if they numbered the locations and had them go ahead to correspond
Yeah.
with the pictures.
If you keep scrolling, it'll show each individual one.
Anyway,
I think they're in that little list that they gave us of the 12 sites. Of all 6.
So it might be a helpful activity for us to take a peek at.
yeah, I agree.
Yep.
At home.
Right.
Indeed.
And I would say, if we've reduced the number to 5, would we be better to all go at once if we can and look at them?
I would say, well, even before, some of these to me, like the schools and the town usage questions, I mean, I think those are things that we can,
We need to
we
find
need to
out.
find out
Yeah,
like
I
now.
agree.
Because the other, we haven't got into it, but I kind of feel like we have a little bit of sense of urgency based on what I've
What
heard
you
from
found
some-
and what Nancy says, I think,
Right.
makes it necessary that we certainly move our deadlines.
Can we go over that?
Because I had some questions about how that
Yeah.
process occurred.
Which process are we talking about?
The updates.
Oh, okay.
Yes, I'm
Yeah,
fascinated
in fact, I
to
have
hear
that here.
about Stanton.
Yeah.
Potential changes in the Stanton grant funding,
That's the next on our
according
agenda.
to Jim, yep.
Yeah, so, I mean, I called, got a name of someone to talk to that basically handles the whole application process, you know, making sure that I's are dotted, T's are crossed, everything, you know, all the equations kind of, you know, equal out, you know, type of thing. When I first spoke to her, she said that the board of directors for Stanton were going to have a meeting, and then basically what I called her about, I said, listen, the language on your website looks a little fishy to me. I'm trying to get us, you know, an understanding of what visibility you can give me at this point with respect to what those potential changes might be. And she said, well, time is everything. Here's, you know, we got a board meeting next week, you know, give me a week and call me back or whatever, and, you know, I should know more. So she dropped some hints, but I didn't even, you know, I ended up talking to her again. What the board decided was they're gonna go down to offering grants for 10
communities in 2017. So it's not like unlimited, which could have been what we, were dealing with 3 weeks ago. It's not necessarily it's because they've run out of money. It's more about what they've seen is because there's too many of these going at once, and the same, group of vendors may be being used because of expertise and experience type thing, is that all of a sudden, when they start getting things in queues, they can, request higher pricing for, the job. So, in their mind, that's making their money go less. So they want to kind of control the demand side of it so that the prices, remain somewhat reasonable. So, she basically says, get your application in, get your approvals, in as soon as you can. Just some simple things like, just because you submit an application doesn't guarantee you a grant. If you get the design grant, that doesn't necessarily you're going to get the construction piece of it as well. They also, wanted something along the lines of if your design grant gets approved, you have to kind of have construction started within 12 months, something along those lines. And then we talked about, what makes them successful and things like that. And she said absolutely the community outreach plan is essential. She says that the communities that get behind the dog parks are the ones that can get them, through the system, a lot faster, a lot quicker. In terms of on their end, I was kind of anticipating, not knowing much about the Stanton Foundation, but just know how most organizations work. Nothing's 24-hour, service level turnaround time. But according to her, if she gets an application in and she can start chewing on that and, coming back to you and, kind of iterate through questions and, additional requests for information. And then, it's only goes to 2 members of the board for the final approval on it. So once she's like the gatekeeper. It only goes to the board once she says everything's there type of a thing.
Right.
Then it's good to go. So, I just think if we want to make this a play for 2017, then we've got to kind of, expedite some things, or, we'll potentially fall, up to the back of the line, and, now we're out 2018.
Absolutely.
Now, I forget, is the Stanton Foundation nationwide or statewide?
Stay.
Statewide, yeah.
I would agree with that. And in fact, Amy also spoke with them and said they're changing to, and then what scared the heck out of me was 2 competitive grants.
I
So
saw that,
Yeah.
yeah.
That means that you're not guaranteed, as Jim said. So thank you for doing that.
I appreciate
Yes, thank
that.
you.
Yes, thanks for the info, Jim.
I would hope and would think that if we worked hard, we could come down to a single site at our next meeting.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't think there's any sense in
I agree.
dragging it
Right,
out beyond
exactly.
that.
And I think I'm so sorry to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
I feel the May deadline, we need to set a target far before then.
Yeah.
Significantly before then, and perhaps even if we were able to give the town administration / board of selectmen a sense of our site selection while working simultaneously on cost analysis, so they
Right.
could do their due diligence consecutively rather than simultaneously.
And at the same time, we could also do outreach with the neighborhood once we pick the site as well.
So, I agree with what you're saying. So, I'm about, what you just defined was the what, right, which is important. And, what I'm all about is the how, because the what's and the whys don't necessarily mean much until the how gets it done type of thing. So, my suggestions are in 2 areas. One is, we've identified 5 or 6, spots. I mean, maybe we throw it up on the board real quickly and we call out, what are the big cons, which we may need some level of follow-up on. And like I said, one might be so huge that, no use going to the next 5 if that one is a big, deal breaker. And let's get that list together so that we can then go ahead and send that out to whoever we need to send out in the town to get that next level of information, because that in itself could quickly take that list from 6 to none or 6 to 2 type of a thing, right? And parallel to that, given that we want to compress our timeline, we've just called out some, a few tasks. Well, let's get dates up there, right? Let's get owners up there with, all right, outreach plan, what is that gonna mean? Who's doing what? Cost analysis, what's that gonna mean? Who's that, other than that, you don't start putting kind of a plan to go forward, you'll never get there.
I hear that. Point of order, Mr. Chairman? Do we need a motion for that?
We do, but I don't want to get so many motions that we forget the next real prime task, which is to pick a specific site, because I think until we have one site, or at most two sites, and Stanton recognizes that you might have two and not reach a final decision, I think until you get it down to that, you can't do much in cost analysis. The other thing about cost analysis and letters of application, some of these things by law have to come from the town. They won't come from us. We can't apply for a grant.
Right.
The town has to apply for the grant. They speak about the chief administrative officer of the town signing a letter that indicates commitment to the task, and that, is either the chairman of the Board of Selectmen or Julie. So I would say that we've really got to pick a site. And we have come much closer tonight than I thought we might. So, again, would you like to visit these sites? Would you like
We'd like to narrow it down
to
even
narrow
more.
it down? You want me to go and see Mrs. Jacobson and say, can you give us legitimate reasons why some of these sites still on our consideration list should be eliminated immediately?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
I
I think
think
some of this, I think for Julia Bancroft and Mary D, I mean, what do we know is the current status of those properties in
Right.
terms of
And
next
we don't
steps?
know, and the
Yeah.
town doesn't know.
Right.
And if they don't know today,
Should we
is there
eliminate?
any thought process in place as to when they might? Or is it on,
Yeah.
is it on a priority list, or is it in,
I don't think it's
limbo?
It's not on a priority list. I haven't seen them put out requests for proposals on them. And again, those would be, in one sense, logical to eliminate because they both have heavy uses now as youth sport fields. And it would be difficult, I think, to take those out of that usage.
It's true, though we're not in charge of scheduling the team's field usage,
No,
so.
no, but if we build a dog park, there is
No more.
no.
No,
field.
I agree, but it's not our responsibility to schedule the team's
No.
usage, so,
No,
I mean, we should take it into account, but we don't need to go, well, the team uses this then, and this team uses this at that point, and is there gonna be overlap? I mean, that's not really our responsibility.
I guess I'm trying to just hear what you're both saying, and I'm looking at it from like big picture.
Right.
That is part of what Jim was speaking about, which is the critical nature of the community action plan and the community outreach plan. My concern would be the organized collective wrath.
United Soccer, modern sports presidents, etc.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yes.
you don't
Fair
want to
point.
do that because that carries over to all the
And we also
sites.
don't want to take it away from the kids.
Right,
You know.
Right,
Yeah, that's certainly
right.
true.
Fair point.
No, but I think it's worth, I mean, I was, I decided to retire last year from the board of United Youth Soccer last year, so I know those people and I know the challenges they had to go through and all that fun stuff. And, I mean, many years ago, we were still figuring out how to do things. We didn't have Pappas, 3 ball fields and a soccer field. We didn't have the little, the field that people use in front of the high school, right? So what's interesting, we have the middle school fields. All these new fields have come online, yet we still have a capacity problem,
Right.
type of thing. And I don't know, is there somebody, who's Pappas's daughter? What's her name?
Dr. Pappas,
Yes.
Dr. Martha.
You mean Kristen?
Dr. Mathers.
Oh, what's
His
her-
daughter?
Niece?
Wife.
Not talking about Kristen
Kristen?
Pappas.
Kristen Pappas.
Yeah,
She's
I was
a
like
niece.
Kristen.
She's a niece?
Doesn't she have some sort of role where she kind of,
She's the Auburn Rec.
She's the recreation
so
director.
recreation,
so
yeah.
she has some sort of like, visibility into like, field usage a little bit type of?
I am not sure. I'd have to ask whether she has that or whether the Parks Department and it seems to me the town engineer might have control over that.
I mean, because like for instance, I know like Pappas gets subbed out when it was not just Auburn teams that are using Pappas. I mean, there's other teams from other communities, whether they're club teams or there are other town teams that are coming in there to use some of that stuff. But in any event, I think going back to the two sites, it's the first thing is, if they're not going to split the property up, or if there's not some way to to structure it that we can even use the field, to me it doesn't even matter about the sports league. We don't even have to get to that part. To me,
Right.
when I look at the sequence of challenges, challenge one is how do you slice and dice that? Can
Right.
one go without the other? Can one stay with the other? How's that going to work
Right.
before you even get to the sports league problem
Right,
type of
sure,
thing?
agreed.
With respect to Pappas, I guess, what's your thought, Ron? I mean, we have to understand more about that land and how it's, is there anything from I don't know, when that park was created, did Pappas have certain wishes, constraints on what could be
Yes.
used, not used type of
Yes,
stuff,
and that's on the developed part of the park.
Okay, not on the
There are the
cornfield.
two other, there's the cornfield, and the cornfield goes way down, but as you go further back, you get more and more into wetland.
Correct, that's
And you
my
get
concern.
into slope problems further back. You have an access under the power lines off
Rice Road.
Rice Road,
Rice Road.
very good, thank you, off Rice Road, which you can sometimes drive to. When I was young and brash and bold and had a Jeep, I could get down there, but that's tough sledding to get down there. So there are different restrictions on the various parts, and I think that's probably why they listed them three separate.
So
Right.
so the same thing there, what are those, what restrictions do we know? Who's in charge of kind of overseeing that? So if we did have deeper questions to ask, that you could kind of vet that out. I mean, those three kind of all have a similar, even Lemansky too. Is that that whole area owned by the town, of that field?
The
Yes.
hockey arena is owned by the state,
Yeah,
Right.
the hockey
Yep.
arena's stayed on, but I believe the fields are owned by the
owned by
town.
the
Yes.
town,
Yep.
but the town has to be careful because it made some deals with the state when the state participated in building. There was, the town did the labor, some of the labor of the building, and was responsible for those costs. The state put up money for it, as well as the money for the hockey rink,
So based on what you just said, that falls in the same category as those other three to me.
More-
What's the
Yeah.
devil in the details?
Yep.
What are the skeletons in the closet? Type of stuff. Because once that's known, that could really
Yes.
hyper
Yes.
drive us into making quick
Yes.
move them up or move them out. So I don't know anything about the Boyce Street. I have to go over there and check that one out myself. But if that's potentially doesn't have as many red flags, then
Right.
Yeah, I don't think it does because there's no organized group that uses it. Neighborhood kids.
do we know how?
use
I
it.
mean, I don't have it on my. Do we know how big that area is?
It's
3/4 of an acre? An acre?
about an acre and a third, I thought.
Oh, the entire, yeah, yeah.
And I guess
Probably 30,000 feet of good usable land.
Plus,
Uh,
right.
One of the assets there is that it has good shade on the back. There's some gigantic oak trees that would provide shade. That's another thing that we have to think about with some of these sites because Stanton demands that there be shade.
So with going back to with Mary D and JB, there would be the challenge, a dual challenge of the organized sports league and,
Sewing
Usage
status.
of
Playground.
the-
Oh, yeah, the playground.
but with Boy Street, there would be playground.
Triple.
you could potentially, with Mary D, with that playground being so close to the pavement area, I mean, you could You could fence around that. I guess, I don't know, I guess the only thing it comes down to is little kids walk over and they stick their fingers through the,
That's the
Yeah.
concern we hadn't mentioned up to
I-
this
The
point.
issue of liability.
Yeah.
I don't know that, I mean, the area behind Mary D is so small anyway. I don't know
Yeah.
that we even need to have that on the list at this point.
would agree
Because
with
it's
you.
small, the playground's right there, they don't know what they're gonna do with that building.
Yeah, I think both Mary D. and Julia Bancroft
Should go
sites
off.
should go off.
I-
For
I'll
that
agree.
reason, because
I'll
we don't
agree
know
with
what they're gonna do
Yeah.
with
Selling
the
status, I just
property.
can't get that.
And the Lemansky, we have to remember there are two possible sites. There's what they call the practice field, the one that's behind between the tennis court and the baseball fields. And if you park in the parking lot and walk there, you gotta walk right by the playground. Unless you walk up the dirt road on the other side of the
Unless you park at the
of the
right.
tennis courts, yeah.
Maybe walk down the hill.
The other one, though, if you get a chance, you should look at it.
You need to
It's
go see the
small.
space.
Yeah, you have to walk, you can walk on the track until you get to the far side of the track, and then you'll be right over it, looking down at it.
Okay, oh, okay. I
Just
just,
the process piece, I'm hearing consensus that we're comfortable, some of us are comfortable eliminating Mary D. Stone and JB.
I would be comfortable.
yeah.
You wanna
Is
make a
anyone
motion?
uncomfortable?
I would just say, let's ask the question. I'm gonna say, I mean, we
Okay.
wanna rule it off for right this second.
Okay.
I'm fine, I'm not gonna lose sleep about that, but let's ask the question, what's the current status for both of those properties as we know today? Is there any timeline? Is there any plan? If they come back and say no, well then obviously we're back to that's a big risk.
Right.
I
don't
know
think-
that JB was potentially being looked at by a church in town. So I don't know if that's still going, and then I heard that it was gonna be auctioned. I don't know, honestly, I think we need to find out for sure.
So, I mean,
There's so many problems with that building.
Yes.
I agree that if we were to like, group, top tier, bottom tier of the top 5, 6 that we've come up with, that's bottom tier.
So
Correct, yes.
Correct,
consensus is
agreed.
bottom tier,
Yep.
but in order to eliminate,
Need
you would
more
be most
information.
comfortable.
Yeah.
with that.
Because we haven't necessarily pulled back all the layers of the top tier yet either, so.
Okay, so in the process of layering, what questions should we ask relative to those sites?
I think for Mary D. and Julie Bancroft, what is the town's current position on what is going to happen with those properties? Is there a plan in place? Is there a plan agreed to, right? Because I mean, I don't know if, I mean, maybe, those of you that are a little bit more closer to how the town operates, I mean, does the town have to get approval on how they would use those properties, or can they make the decision on
Probably
their own?
not. The selectmen, I think, now can dispose them. The school committee turned them in, which means they went to the selectmen. I think anytime the selectmen decide they can ask for an RFP, it might be wide open, or it might be limited for an RFP for residential purposes, or for church purpose, or whatever broad purpose the town might think was suitable for it.
So even if we're using the tier system at this point, we're making significant progress with
Oh,
4
yeah.
in the
Yes.
upper tier.
Yeah, because I think with like Boy Street, one of the things we could say is everybody go out and take a look at that,
Yep.
just to kind of keep the process,
Right.
moving
Yeah.
type of a thing. Now getting back to Pappas, I mean, to me, it's who can we talk to, or who can they talk to as to what are the constraints, limitations, problems, challenges? Because like I said, I bring my dog up there, or my last dog. This one I haven't done that yet with. No, actually I did. He's more well traveled than I thought. So it's happening right now, and I think what maybe, depending on how big that area is and how that area is kind of, the topology of it. To me, if you're far enough back from the playground area, which already is fenced in, right? That's a benefit of that particular playground area itself. That's already fenced in right now. So if you have that separated with some distance, then another fence, then I would argue you have a lesser chance of, younger kids. I mean, I'm hoping, kids over 10 aren't gonna go over there and do stupid things, but I've got kids in that age
Never
group,
know.
and they do. So,
Now that you mentioned it, it's.
But I
They
think-
don't do the.
but I would say, who do we talk to? I mean, is there any constraints with respect to using that area?
I'm-
When I looked at the wetlands, on the map, I didn't see
wetlands, little green things come up on that area. Now, I can go back and double check that to make sure, I was using the software correctly, but I think I was, and I saw wetlands that was more away from that
Yeah,
area
that,
type
that
of.
was my concern with Pappas, was the wetlands, and I didn't know if that area was considered wetland area or not, but.
I didn't see
Area-
any on mine.
They noted that the area between the developed play areas and the cornfields requires wetland crossings.
Okay.
And
But
I
not
think that, it's low in there and swampy and became wetland because after the farming of the area stopped, the culverts that kept most of the area dry just caved in and there was flooding during wet times of the year. You could, if you got permission from conservation, you probably could make them dry again by repairing the culverts. That's difficult to do in this day and
Yes.
age.
Right.
They frown on restoring
Right.
wetland areas into dry areas at this stage.
So with regards to the 4 upper level site, upper tier sites, do we feel that we should all view those properties?
You could, I mean,
Yeah,
that's an option for
And
everybody
get
if you're
answers.
not familiar with them. I think what would be helpful to ensure that we're all looking at apples to apples, at least with Pappas and Lemansky, is there some way we can get definitive, whether that's a screenshot or a picture or something, as to what areas we are absolutely looking at? Because, we may not all be looking at the same thing the same way.
Yes, if you look at the 6 sites they have in the Park presentation, the Lemansky site is the little site outside of the fenced-in track. It is not what is called the practice field, which is
So-
the
so-
bigger area.
But
So
that is
if you're
potential.
looking at, if you're in the parking lot, right, and you're looking forward and that football track thing is there, where am I going to get to the area you're talking to?
The easiest way, if you just want to look at it, is, well, you're young and healthy. You can go right. You can park as you come into the driveway. Now, you're familiar with the fact that there are upper and lower driveways.
Yes.
The lower driveway, as you're coming in the straight area, first time as you get to the park boundary, on your right, there'll be a hill.
Yeah.
And it's the top of that hill,
That's what they're talking
which is like a little mesa.
Right.
So is that behind the building?
No.
No.
Oh, no.
It's right next, it's on the side of the track.
Yeah.
It's a very small area.
It's
That
a
is
very
really
small
small
area.
area, yeah.
Yes.
Extremely small.
I don't, I
Yes.
wouldn't even
Yeah,
honestly
it would probably
consider it.
be,
Yeah.
you'd be lucky if you could
Yeah, I was
get
thinking more of the
20,000
Slope
feet.
also, yeah.
Yeah, you couldn't
Yeah.
use the slope. You'd have to stay, I think, at that flat area.
I
on
mean,
top.
here's a thought, right? I don't like the small area personally.
I don't either.
I mean, what I know for a fact is, at least from soccer, is we always had problems with. I mean, the field that's back there by Lemansky is junk.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
we used to have the young
Yep.
kids playing there. It was like playing on dirt.
Yep.
So, and I saw or heard no, again, I've been out of it for about 6 months. I've seen it or heard no inclination that, there was an agreement in place to replace that field, to fix that field, or any of that type of stuff.
And they didn't, they fixed the field inside the track.
Yeah, that's nice.
That is nice now.
Yeah.
And probably will
Wasn't
be
before,
used
yeah.
for soccer matches at some time
Yeah.
because it's big.
Yeah.
We used to call it our beach when we played soccer there, because my teams played there, and it was literally.
But we've
sand.
lost soccer
Yeah.
fields.
We
We
no longer
lost
play there.
little
Refuse to play there.
several fields with the middle school.
Yeah.
We got one all-purpose field,
We had two.
all-weather field.
Yeah.
But before on Saturdays, they would split up the big area beyond that into 4 or 5 fields. Those are gone. I think that most of the area at the intermediate school on Swanson Road is now gone. So that they'll be looking to replace those somehow, not move said addition ones.
Yeah. If we're talking about Lemansky, though, personally would only want to look at how the area behind the tennis courts, and that all that open area, and really see how much space there is. Can it be shared if the football teams are still going to use it? I need to go look at it again because I haven't looked over that area in a long time.
Well, I think the question, for us to answer there is how much land is available? And, well, I don't think we care about constraints, right? I mean, the only, in
Right.
terms of like ownership aspect
Yep.
of it, it's all about whether or not, what's the impact of certain sports leagues.
Right,
Right.
that's it. Yep. And perhaps walking by the playground,
Yeah.
but the path
Yes.
is outside the
And
playground.
Kids go sledding down that hill behind that hockey rink as well.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah, the whole area is used,
Yeah.
right.
most of the year for something
Yeah.
or other.
And adding, though, the majority of dog parks that I was looking into are all in recreational areas.
Yeah.
They're all used near playgrounds,
Sure.
near ball fields, near whatever,
Which makes sense. Just bring the whole family out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that is really a liability thing. People actually like being able to take their dogs to games or to the playground, but that was something that I think would be a benefit. You have recreational areas,
Yep.
and you can actually bring your dog there too, and have a place that they can go, as opposed to being yelled at for having your dog where you're not supposed to have your dog.
Right.
Which happens a lot in town. And of course, it's a liability issue that has nothing to do with the town or the dog park itself. That's an individual owner situation.
Of
That's just the way it is.
I mean, at the end of the day, you have the liability, issue everywhere.
Right, no matter
You got
where
a
you
fence,
go.
you got dogs in there. I
Anyone.
mean, granted,
Yep.
you can make argument that, more foot traffic can generate potential more risk, but at the end of the day, you're not gonna risk-proof it
Right,
unless you put a 30-foot fortress of solitude around it
Right.
and
yeah,
key card it or something,
Yep.
like that.
with a moat.
And even then, you've got to get the dog from the parking area into this
Right, yes.
fort.
Only people use their head.
All right, is there any other business to come before us?
No, so the tasks for next week are to go look at these 6 sites
Yeah, and if you
individually.
wanted to, you know,
Well,
Set
that's
a
one
date to
piece,
go
but
all at
are
once.
we good with what
I'm
we're
gonna
gonna?
go and see about anything that's going on with JB and
Yep.
Erie D, and I'm gonna see the constraints on the package out property.
Can we ask about Lemansky? Because
Yes.
you mentioned the
Yeah.
state making
Yeah.
a deal with the town and the land, and
Yeah.
if there's anything against putting.
I would honestly, like, when you talk about legalities on building on these properties, just ask about all of them.
Yeah.
Might as well.
Why not?
Yeah. Blanket. Right, yeah. I'm gonna take pictures when I go out over the next couple weeks. I would encourage everyone else to do the same.
Sure.
Okay.
We can put them up on Google, the drive.
Do we plan to get down to one site next?
I would like to
Like all
get down, I would like to,
the-
yeah, be able to
Yeah.
say this is the site. And we can assign tasks for the rest of our responsibility.
Are we comfortable waiting 2 weeks?
Well, that's what, to that point, what I was gonna suggest is, let's just kinda whiteboard a little bit in terms of, if we were to get to one site, by this date, let's just, throw up some high-level deliverables. Okay, then what would be next? All right, the cost analysis, would we get that done in the next 2 weeks? Okay, and then after that, is it put together, what are we gonna do for outreach? I mean, those pieces to me are still gonna impact what the overall timeline is gonna be, and that's gonna make us know sooner than later. So to your point, do we meet next week? Do we meet 2 weeks? Well, if you don't kinda get a sense of what the whole roadmap is gonna be, you can't make that call, or you won't make that call until it's too late.
I know for scheduling purposes, Julie had reserved this room for us every other Wednesday.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Yeah,
So I don't know if this room would be available next Wednesday.
I think the 15th was safe, but I'm not sure, I would agree with you. I think that she decided that, or we decided that we'd only go every second week, and so she did the every other week. So the next available time would be the 15th.
Yeah.
But I would expect that we would come in here with our mind's made up as to which is
I would agree with
Yes.
that.
a
Yep.
favorable site.
Well, that's,
And then
well, the
we'll
only thing
do
I would say to
other
that
tests.
is providing we get some of the answers we're looking for.
Well, yeah,
Yes,
of course,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, but the answers, I think, will only reduce the number. It's not gonna increase it now at all.
Right.
Right,
So understanding that we know that piece, that we're gonna go do our field visits, and you're going to obtain the information from the powers that
Mhm.
be.
right.
What I'm hearing from Jim is that you wanted to visit the deliverables, as you said, so we have a roadmap of what comes next.
That makes sense.
I would just say, at this point, we don't have to necessarily get it down to a science, but I'm just, so, okay, so the 15th, just talk through it.
Sure.
So 15th, we get to a site, you know, the gods and the planets and the stars align for us, and, you know, we get that, okay? So at that point, we've got one site. What do we all agree, you know, in concept, what the next step is at that point? Do we maybe parse the group up and like
Yeah.
half of us work on cost analysis, half of us come up with a community reach, you know, reach plan type of
Yes.
thing?
Yeah,
So then maybe perhaps like, so now maybe the next time that would be March 1st. So maybe March 1st, we'll walk in the door with some sort of, you know, first pass cost analysis, first pass outreach plan. We can then iterate on that as one group at that point in time and get to a point where we've got a final. Reasonable?
presentation.
I think that's reasonable. I think we
Yeah.
ought to be able to come up with a draft budget. And we remember, it's a draft budget, not the construction budget. So
Right.
there's room for play. In fact, they provided you with the opportunity to play because they give you the opportunity to apply each of the next 3 years for a supplemental grant if there's
Right.
something that you forgot or feel you
Right.
need after that. So I think we could come up with what our responsibility is going to be in terms of the draft application, which again, I think is what the town has to do.
Because when we look at our timeline and just trying to get in there as soon as possible, you know, you brought up the point earlier, it's like, we're basically gonna hand off something,
Right.
Yes.
right? The
Right.
town's gonna have to run with
The
that
town's
at
gonna
that
have to
point
run
type
with
of
it.
stuff,
Yep,
so.
that's it.
Yeah.
So whether, you know, that's a, you know, 6-year process or a 6-day process, I'm not really sure about that
Yeah.
yet, but that's, you know, that's what I'm also trying to factor in here when we look at kind of timeline. So, in terms of outreach, maybe, because that can really impact the timeline, so maybe if we just, you know, if we're okay with, since we're kind of doing, actually not too bad with time, what's our thoughts on what we would do there, right? In terms of, we talked about like a fact sheet, you know, about dog parts and terms like that. So we get it down to one place. Do we call an open meeting and then socialize that through certain avenues to try to get people in from that area to come in and, you know?
Well,
learn?
all our meetings are open, but I think you're
But
right.
we
I
have
think
to-
if you,
yes.
We have to
if you
actually
mail,
go
you want to
invite them,
mail
yeah.
a direct mailing to go to the abutters. There's no sense if you're picking something on Boy Street,
Right.
notifying people
Right.
Okay.
on,
Do you have any experience with that, how that process works within the town, the direct mail type of stuff? Is that something they they have a service in-house, or they somebody they
I
use?
don't know, I don't know.
I'd ask that, if we could add that to the
Yeah.
question list, you know.
Yeah.
You know, how do we go ahead and handle?
I mean, I know how you get the abutters to any particular area.
Right.
We would have to divide, to decide how far out you wanted to go.
Right.
But for example, if the Board of Selectmen is doing, I don't know, this is a hypothetical, a hearing because someone has violated something about something, and they
Told you
want
not
the
to.
abutters to come in. Do they have like form letters to say we are inviting you to,
I don't think so.
okay.
And I don't think they have outreach with hearings or things of that nature.
Would another board or committee do outreach to abutters?
I don't.
What's,
The only one that would be some sort of change in zoning that affects them, and then they might.
so
Right. Letter from
I
the
once
censors.
had a neighbor, not where I'm living now, but in a previous place in town, come and invite me to a town hall meeting or a selectmen's meeting or something, to voice my concern about the quality of the roads. I couldn't go to the meeting, but it was just the neighbor who basically came and rang on all the doorbells, the one who had petitioned the town in the first place to make this change. He came and rang on all of our doorbells to let us know of the meeting. It might come down to us having to canvass the neighborhood.
So with the previous site, when the town, how was it that there was an angry mob
They
at the
sent out
Board of
letters.
Selectmen's meeting?
They sent out letters to those who were within so many feet or yards of
was
the
they?
site. The town manager, I believe. Was it Julie? Because she referred to it as we also, so I don't know who she was.
Okay, so I
Who
wasn't
was
sure
at
if it was
the
the
meeting?
town or
Right.
if it was
No,
the
who
Fur
sent the,
Friends.
they sent a letter out, and I don't know who they is.
Yeah, I don't know who.
I believe it was, I
thought
believe it
they
was town
sent
manager.
out a survey.
Or planning board. Planning board?
There
I
was
don't
a
think so.
survey.
How are,
I've been the planning committee, which
Planning committee.
was, it's at the bottom of Amy's presentation. There are like 5 people from the plan. There's the planner, Julie, I think, is on that. Amy is on that. But there are like 5 people.
Open space. It was
Yeah.
one of those committees. I want to say it was planning committee.
Probably called themselves some
Yeah.
sort of
Right.
planning committee.
So could we add that to the list of questions to figure out how we might find out?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Just to make sure we're following up. So folks can't say we didn't follow the best practice of
Right.
the town
Right.
with regards to
Well,
notifying.
I would say, to me, the outreach plan would contain the following components, right? Because you got different people who rely on different mediums of communication. That's just, we're not all unified 100% as much as we sometimes like to think we are, right? So some sort of direct mailing to whatever the square mile radius of where people need to be informed would need to get done. Questions around that is, how long would it take? Is that a 3-month turnaround, a 3-week turnaround, 2-week? I mean, I have no visibility into that. Doesn't sound like any of us do. We need to know that answer, because that's going to factor into how we plan for this. I don't know what type of online survey capabilities if the town has 0, none. I don't know, like for instance, we get these one call types of things. I don't know if there's the ability to pull out a group of the people that are within one call, like say, all right, show me all the people that are on these streets. Okay, well now let's make a phone call and just have it go out to those people. I don't know. I mean,
I'm not sure
logically, I've seen systems that can do that.
Right.
Whether we have that technology and accessibility, don't know. But that would.
We do. We have a butters. That's how notification is generally done, and that's the term.
And then we can
Where
always
the
put in,
abutters notified.
So then another question I would then have, so, obviously, the automated call-outs would be great. I mean, in order to try to increase, I mean, do we do our own call-outs? Hey, just want to, not necessarily talk about it at that point, but just calling, this is Jim, I'm with the Dog Park Committee. We're considering a site in your area. We're having a such and such, meeting at this day and day. If you've got questions, concerns, would love to have you there.
yeah.
Sure.
We can also, put up
we can do
a
that.
message on the website, make sure it goes out on the different various Facebook groups.
That's another
things like that
good
as well.
point too. So what I would recommend is that we put it out there 5, 6 different ways,
Right.
so that it minimizes people saying, oh, I didn't know, or you didn't tell me. Well, what else would you have liked us to do?
Right.
We try to get to you in 5, 6 different ways. I mean,
Right.
we get it recorded right now. Can
Right.
we somehow put a little 2-second YouTube video, say, come to the Dog Park Committee, we'd love to have you, type of thing, So I think the sooner we kind of flush that out, then we can kind of reverse engineer how long and what's it going to take us, as opposed to, oh, now we need the plan and now we don't know what to do.
Right.
So I think at this point, there's some questions we need to ask around what our capabilities are,
What
so
our
that could help
resources
us.
are.
So
exactly.
if we get the answers to these questions over the next 2 weeks, we can come back in 2 weeks and
Yes,
make a plan for what we're gonna say, when we're gonna say it, and
absolutely.
how we're gonna do it.
So if you want to make this, I'm happy to take a first swag at those questions, what they could be, and I'm happy to send them to you, Ron, who you can then maybe package it all up with whatever questions, that we've talked about with respect to the site locations themselves, and then let's pass that on to Julie and see what we get back for feedback. That way we're kind of hitting a couple of, things at the same time, and we're not waiting with so much of a sequential approach, because every time we wait
Yeah.
with a dependency like that, it's just pushing out the timeline.
Okay.
So if everybody's cool with that, I'll put together the 5 or 6 questions, if you know, more or less I've heard everything, what you said. Your point's very good. Let's see what we can do.
Yep.
People don't like to be shocked. Most people don't like shock and awe.
No.
It's just, they're not made for that. Millennials are, because that's all they know is change. But anybody older than the millennials, the change scale begins to, their tolerance level, I find, begins to kind of decrease until then you get, folks that have been around for a bit.
Yep.
The world is not what it was 40, 50 years ago.
Hey, well, if we end up at Womansky, you don't have to talk to anybody.
Well, there you go. That's what.
Sorry.
It's all right.
So, are there any questions? I mean, I know all the sites with this, the last one that you like, Ron. Are there any questions we need to ask about that location? With
No, I
respect-
think, it's what's there salvageable, and will the Parks Department and Highway Department move them to either Franklin Field or
Right, or JB.
JB at the time being.
So here's another question with respect to timeline impact. So we go ahead and we get that one site thing
Yep.
selected. Is there another degree of due diligence that needs to get done at that point with respect to well, how are we gonna figure out how the water gets hooked into there? How are we gonna figure in that? I mean, it's
No, that might be part of our cost analysis,
yeah.
but
And I believe Julie had volunteered
Yeah,
the town
and I'm
engineer
sure
for
those-
joining us.
those things the town will do.
So maybe that's something to put on our to-do list is, when we're ready to talk cost benefit and we want to start getting some inputs, that we invite the town engineer to the meeting.
Or
He
we
may
come up with
invite
a
us
list
to
of,
his.
or we come up with a
And that's
list,
fine too.
Yeah.
or we come up with a list of questions to ask him or her,
Yeah.
just in case they can't make it, or we can't make it to theirs, etc.
Sure.
So I mean, ideally, I don't know, I guess here's a general question. I mean, how much time do you think is, assuming if a mailing went out, it takes, it's from a local source and it takes 2 days to get to your house, whether you read it or not, do we think what's the time frame that we think is reasonable for it to bake? Meaning, hey, we need some input from you,
Right.
type of thing.
I think a week or two is
I
plenty
agree,
of time.
yeah, like between one meeting and the next, I think. we
More
can
than
get
if
it done.
they forgot.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Right, so at the next meeting,
Yeah.
we determine.
Provided a mailing can get out fast enough. I believe it can, but yeah,
Oh,
just in
yeah.
case.
Yeah.
Well, just hearing the sense of urgency from the town, I feel that they would make it a priority.
I agree.
When do the Board of Selectmen meetings are on Monday nights? What second or first or what?
I'm not sure.
I'm sorry, sir?
It'll be next Monday. won't it?
Next Monday.
So next Monday,
It's the second and
Second, fourth, is that?
Six.
the sixth technically would be the first first Monday of the month.
Correct.
That's what you're saying it would
I
be?
think the next, we got the one last week. So they're skipping this week, so
All right.
it's
So
next
it's every other-
So where I'm going with this and why I'm asking the question is, another thing, I don't know when you want to make this call, and I don't know how flexibility the agendas are with Board of Selectmen and how far in advance they actually, plan stuff. But to me, if with what we're talking about, so, February 15th, we potentially get to a site, we get the majority of our questions answered, and then we start moving into, all right, let's branch off into cost analysis and community outreach, and we just spend the next 2 weeks doing on that.
Right.
That's going to bring us to March 1st,
Right.
right? So at that point, if we're able to kind of agree on a plan at that point, with the outreach to me is the big piece, getting
Right.
that out in front of that. So maybe, now you're talking 2 weeks there, but maybe even some slag. So to me, if maybe a reasonable goal, right, as I'm backdooring into this, is if the town Board of Selectmen meets the first Monday of a month, and that's maybe something we just need to maybe look up online, then perhaps April 3rd is when we look to get on their calendar. I mean, everything that I just talked about would have to get done, would have to,
Meet with
Um,
Yep.
then I think maybe the other thing, so if we did that, because I think
I
that,
think Julie will schedule us.
Yeah.
on the-
Yes.
yeah,
Yep.
but the other thing too, though, another date that's important to schedule for is we should have an open, nobody may come, because I've
Right.
had that happen before.
Yep.
But I think we need to have that scheduled as sooner than later. We don't necessarily have to announce it, but if we want to make sure we have the space available within the town hall type of stuff, we potentially pick a date, somewhere between March 15th and March 24th, where that's our own open house date where you come in and talk to us about it. So we might be just looking at ourselves. I mean, I might have to bring a small cooler or get some beverages because I guess
Nothing gets people in like free food.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I think that's kind of would make a good time frame for us to start looking at. So.
I think that's definitely doable.
Okay.
So we don't have to dot i's on that, but I just want to make sure, kind of, we're on the same page in terms of how we gonna move together, the timing and stuff, because I know everybody else has got other stuff going on in their lives. It's not just the
Yeah.
dog park committee too. So, and that's part of the reason why I bring it up, because if people say, well, geez, I'm gonna be traveling the next, 2 weeks, that's a problem. Well, if we start knowing some of that potential risk sooner than later, it's only gonna help us in the long run.
Right.
No, that makes sense to me.
Okay,
So
ready to call it a night?
you have the list of questions you're gonna
Yep.
ask? Everyone's gonna go visit those 6 sites?
We'll do it.
Most of them are already on my list, so my list is like half of that.
Alright.
Well, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Sounds good.
Second, yeah, there we go.
Okay. Moved and second, all in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.